welcome to Money Matters TV. I'm Tami Fratis, your host and managing director at ACT Capital Advisors. We have an exciting show today. I have a co-host, Robin Bond, who's a lawyer and the CEO of Transition Strategies. Welcome, Robin.
Well, thank you, Tami. I'm so happy to be joining you today.
Yes, and I'm so happy to have you on the show. Robin's also the author of a book, which she can tell us about, that was had Mark Cuban write the foreword. So she's the celebrity in the book. We also have Jon Grishpul that's going to join us, and he's going to tell us all about accessory dwelling units. And we're going to take a question from the audience and then tell you how you can write in a question so we can answer it. So let's get started. Robin, tell me a little bit about transition strategies. How do you help clients? What do you do? Lay it out.
Okay. Well, I am an employment lawyer, and my law firm specializes in representing executives in the negotiation of employment or severance agreements. Anything in the world of work, helping people to get the maximum pay, perks, and most of all, protections, whether either segueing into a new job or on their way out.
So if I'm working and someone suggests that I should go see the HR department if I'm having some problems at work, what do you think? Is that a good strategy? Should I listen to that?
We get this a lot. Actually, no, I have to tell people that HR is not your friend. You know, HR is there to basically do what management wants them to do. So if you're having trouble at work, the best thing you can do is seek outside legal advice from an employment attorney in your area that represents people, and understand what the situation is, understand what your rights are and what they aren't, because they're not necessarily a whole lot of rights. So before you go to HR, you already know how you are going to express the concerns that you're having in a way that you'll actually be heard.
That's great. That's great advice. And so can you give us some examples of how you help clients? I'm particularly interested in the whole aging population, and there seems to be a lot of age discrimination.
I just wrote an article about this for Mainline Today, one of the local magazines here, on flex-tirement. So many people are retiring way before they think they want to. And the average age for retirement now is 62. And it's not because people wanted to leave. It's because they were downsized, forced out, incentivized by some sort of voluntary supplemental retirement program. And then they find that it's not as easy to work back into the job market as they thought it would be. So many people think they're going to flex and do all this consulting and part-time work. And what we're seeing is it's really pretty hard to do that unless we've got a super specialty, and companies don't want to have to pay for a full-time FTE to get the expertise that you bring to the table, but they're willing to pay for it on a consulting basis. So differentiation is very important as you age in the marketplace. Having a skill that is marketable and positions you uniquely to be able to continue commanding money, because a lot of times you just cannot replicate at 62 the same opportunities that you can when you're at 38. This is just very ingrained into the system. Is it legal? No. But it's hard to prove it. You have to prove age is the only reason you aren't getting the job, and that can be difficult to prove.
Great. Okay, well, that was very helpful. And you wrote a book. How did you ever get Mark Cuban to write the foreword? Do you know?
I went to college with Mark. And he used to drive me home to and from school back in Pittsburgh back in the day. So that was how. And then when I wrote this book on how to negotiate a killer job offer, I put it up for sale on Amazon because I never really thought that I would do this, like dumping my brain, on how to level the playing field for everybody who wants to know, what do these executives know that I don't know? How can I play more powerfully in negotiations? And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to make this a way to really help anybody who needs the help to be able to actually succeed better at work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so now we're going to, I guess, talk about some current events and how it impacts private companies.
Yeah, there were things that I wanted to ask you about because your expertise clearly is in this space, and it's going to be very helpful to people out here listening. Like, what are the top 3 factors that you see that affect private company valuations? Public companies is easy to see, but not so with private companies.
Right. You're true. That's absolutely true. So in private companies, of course, Mark Cuban has a lot of experience with this, but
Yes.
growth rates, it's all about growth rates and the company's ability to generate consistent returns, sustainable revenue, consistent earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, sometimes called EBITDA. So that's number one, first and foremost. The next is the total addressable market. How big is the market? So if we look at the market for tissues, huge market. However, from a competitive positioning, I almost said, what's the market for Kleenex? Because Kleenex owns the tissue market. So really hard to compete in the tissue market because Kleenex really owns that market. So how big is the market and how big is your competitive position, or how big could it be? And then lastly, it's all about the management team, their track record. Have they done this before? Have they had success before? And is there execution risk, either due to inflation or tariffs now, supply chain issues? And so it's a really interesting process to value a private company, and that's what venture capitalists do, and that's what a lot of other investors, angel investors in private companies do.
Yeah, I took a class in this once at Penn, and it just seemed like almost a crapshoot. But anyway, so the other thing that I think about too is volatility in the public markets. How does that affect the volatility in the private markets, private companies?
That's a great question. Well, volatility in the public markets does impact volatility in the private market, but there's a buffer. So while the public markets could be very volatile, because the volatility is usually short term in the public market, in the private market, it's damper. It's when we have a long term downturn in the public markets that the private companies really get impacted because they can't raise money. So there's liquidity challenges. Investors don't want to invest because there's no exits. And ultimately, the private company valuations drop, just like the public company valuations.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that in biotech with the funding not too long ago. So, and now everybody's talking about tariffs. And how do you think that the tariff increases will affect the revenue or the net income for these private companies?
Sure. Well, of course, tariffs cause goods that are put into the process for producing products and producing services. There's higher input cost. And then there's limited ability to raise prices because if your tariff is 25%, you can't raise prices 25%. So now your margins are impacted. And also a lot of times there's retaliatory tariffs. So now you go to export products out and your products aren't selling as much because they're higher price. And again, there's a lot of trade uncertainty. So it's really not good for small businesses, but we have to, as entrepreneurs, learn how to navigate and weave. And it actually gets to the question that we have from our audience this week. I think you know that question, Robin.
Oh, the question is, what is the venture capitalist approach to investing?
Right. So the VCs.
What is your approach, Tami?
The VCs love high risk, high reward. So when there's volatility in the market, actually VCs to some degree like volatility, because if they can see a long-term strategy to either disrupt a market or create a new market because of the volatility, they're going to take that risk because there's an opportunity for a high reward. And they're going to understand, because they typically have a 7 to 10 year investment horizon, that the long-term view means a number of companies are going to fail, but in the long term, they're going to have some startups or early stage companies that are going to scale rapidly, capture market share, and eventually go public or be acquired. So great question from Sally Edwards. And if you have a question, please listen to how you can send in your question now to Money Matters TV.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Thank you so much. We have a great guest here today. We're going to bring Jon Grishpul on, who's the founder, owner of Maxable, and also Great Builds. He's going to tell us about accessory dwelling units, ADUs. So, Jon, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tami. Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome to the show. Tell us, what are these ADUs? They're not accessories for my charm bracelet, are they?
No, not exactly. So put very simply, an accessory dwelling unit is a secondary housing unit added to an existing residential lot. So think about it like a structure next to your primary home that has a bathroom, a kitchen, and some type of sleeping area.
Cool. And is that going to increase my property value?
It certainly will. So think about it at the end of the day. If you have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home and you add on to it another bedroom and another bathroom, inherently that will increase the value of the property. So it's the same thing, except with an ADU, you have a lot more flexibility. You have a lot more options as to how it can be utilized, how you can build it. So it can add just as much, and frankly, if not more value than just a typical addition to your home.
And how on earth did you ever get into
I'm sorry.
this business? Sorry, Robin.
Yeah.
You can ask the question 1 second. I just want to know how he ever got into this business. It's so interesting.
So I'm born and raised here in California. About 6 or 7 years ago, I started a different business, Great Builds, that specializes in matching homeowners with reliable contractors. And the inception of that business was really based on how difficult it is to find a good contractor, someone that you can trust around your home, around your kids, with all of your money. And that led us down a deep, deep rabbit hole about all the inherent issues when it comes to working with contractors, especially for larger scale projects. And when we were starting that business, the ADU revolution was beginning here in California. So it was an opportunity for us to both provide the right contacts and the right contractors for homeowners exploring those projects, and also exploring everything there is to know about building ADUs, about the added value with ADUs and everything like that.
Yeah, everybody has trouble finding good contractors everywhere. So I would think that would be fantastic, because when you're talking about ADUs, what are the best types? I think of them all as being like a standalone unit. Is that true, or like what are the best types? If you're going to be an investor in one of these or add to your own home.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'd say if you were to go down the thought process, the first step is figure out what your goals are, both short-term and long-term, because like I said, ADUs are flexible. A lot of people use them for a gym or an office space. A lot of people see them as an opportunity for extended family to stay closer to home. And then, of course, one of the biggest opportunities is that these can be short-term, long-term rented. So adding passive income to any landowner. So there's so many different use cases and goals when it comes to these types of projects, and that will directly indicate what the best type of ADU. And no, it is not just a detached unit in the back, although it can be. The cheapest way is typically converting an existing garage, because that structure is already there, but you can put an ADU on top of a garage in a basement, attached, built onto the existing home, or detached from the home, and anything like that.
And how does one go about getting a permit, or do you need a permit? Does it vary by county, by state? What's the process?
So every state will have their own specific regulations, but yes, you typically will always need a building permit. It starts by working with an architect to develop plans for your project, all the ins and outs from an architectural standpoint as well as a structural perspective. That's submitted to the city to make sure that it meets all the standards and guidelines of building codes and zoning regulations. And once that's approved, you hire a contractor and they build it for you. I'd say depending on the size and the scale of the project, start to finish, you can expect somewhere from 9 to 15 months to have your finished ADU.
And not just the time, but what about the expense? Because, okay, let me just say this. If I had an ADU, I would want it to be a standalone dwelling that I could rent, like with a living area, a sleeping area, a bathroom, and a little kitchen. So how much does something like that, ballpark cost you? I know it's going to depend on where you live and everything, but just give us a ballpark.
Right. Location changes all of this, but from what I have the most experience with here throughout California and urban and suburban areas, the cheapest approach to it is converting an existing garage. All the costs start to finish are probably starting around 120 to 130,000. If you want to build a brand new detached unit in your backyard from scratch, I'd say those start around 175 to 200,000, and that's for maybe 400 or 500 square foot space. So a studio or a small one bedroom.
Can I finance the project?
You can, yeah, certainly. The most common financing options for homeowners are either a home equity loan or a HELOC, but there are specialized construction loan products out there that are specifically for these types of projects as well.
I keep telling my daughter I want a granny pod in the backyard. That's what I want. I think that would be awesome. But is it more, I know you kind of gave us this, but how about cost per square foot? Because that's something you can really compare in your own zip code, so to speak. But is it the same cost per square foot to build these ADUs as it is to like add on to a home or to build a home?
It can be similar, sure. When you're adding onto a home, you're typically not adding a kitchen, but you may add a bedroom or an extra bathroom. So if you
Yeah.
look at all the factors and all the costs that go into building a new home from scratch, it's all the same elements. Your ADU is a legal dwelling unit, just like your home. So when it comes to plumbing and electrical and sewage, all the utilities, the foundation, it is a fully fledged living space. So cost per square foot is consistent. It's fairly similar as far as any other new construction of that type. Out here, I'd say cost per square foot starts around $250 to $300 a square foot on the low end, and I've seen projects on the high end at $500 or $600 a square foot as well. So again, it always depends on the type of materials that the homeowners choose, the contractor that they hire, their best approach to the project, and what makes the most sense for them and for the property.
And how many of the states or counties that you know of actually ban ADUs? Is that a thing?
So on a state level, it still is a thing, but on a more local jurisdiction level, it is hardly a thing at all. And again, I'll speak mostly from my experience here in California. There have been cities and local municipalities that have tried to push back and say, we don't want to allow those ADUs here. But the state always takes precedent over what the law of the land is. So there are many organizations out there, one of them being my company, Maxable, that can help push back against the city regulations and them trying to prevent ADUs from getting created. But I will say some cities still do have the opportunity to limit certain aspects of the project. Certain cities here say, although the state guidelines you can build 1,200 square feet maximum, some cities say you can only build up to 800 square feet maximum here. So little by little, things will always be changing. But on a state level, at least from the ones that I know, the state takes precedent and they enforce whether it's allowed or it's not.
And are you seeing this like modular homes are popular in some areas, like where you don't have to get an architect and design it from scratch? You can pick a modular unit that comes, made in a factory and they just put it together. Are you seeing that trend in your industry?
Certainly. Yeah, that's a relatively newer concept in the space, although modular homes have been around for many, many
Yeah.
years, since Sears 100 years ago.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah, actually, yeah.
since it's a relatively newer concept with regard to this application, it's very, very popular. Now, as far as seeing the actual application of these prefabricated or modular building units, that remains to be seen, because at the end of the day, the stick built, the more traditional approach to construction, if you build a unit in your backyard the same way that your home is built, it's going to add the same amount of value as your existing home. But it remains to be seen how much value some of these prefabricated units add to the property based on the building materials used and the building methods. One thing I will say, because I have the opportunity, I keep seeing a new article every single day about these $20,000 Amazon tiny homes, or you can get a full home for only $50,000. It's really, really important to read between the lines and understand that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. A lot of these units I've seen are total scams. Homeowners paid $20,000 for them, and in the mail they got a slip of paper with a picture on it, not a home shipped to them. And also, even if it is legitimate, and a lot of these prefab units or tiny homes modular, they will say their list price is only $100,000. But what does that include? That is the most important question to ask for any of these types of projects, because they sometimes don't mention the fact that that unit still needs a foundation, still needs utilities brought to it from the street or from the existing home. And also, what's the finish level on the inside? Many of these, they ship you a box, and it's up to you to finish everything off with the flooring, the cabinetry, the shower and bathtub and toilet, all those things. Are they included in that sale price or not? And that's a really, really important aspect of these prefab and modular units that's important to look into.
So how does your service then help a potential ADU owner do the process? Like, it sounds pretty complicated.
It is complicated. It's really difficult, and we've spent all our years working on better understanding the process and lining up the right people with the right experience. So Maxable, in a nutshell, is really just a one-stop shop to give people all the information, resources, and referrals that they need to get the job done from start to finish. So we have tons of YouTube videos with walkthroughs of different types of ADUs, with Q&As about how do I approach this aspect or that of the project. And we have an e-course where people that are ready to take that next step in building an ADU, you can take our e-course and learn everything that you'll need to know in detail. And then finally, when you are ready to take that next step and you want to start the process of building your ADU, we have expert ADU architects. We work with some of the best general contractors that specialize in ADUs. So we know the proven track record of our teams, and we can ensure that homeowners are working with the right people to get the job done. Like I said earlier, my initial company was Great Builds that I started, and my main goal is to make sure that shady contractors can stop taking advantage of homeowners. And along directly with the ethos of Maxable is the ethos of my other company, Great Builds. And it's to ensure that people find reliable, trustworthy contractors and architects that they can trust with their money around their homes and everything.
Well, now, Jon, if you succeed in that, there will be nothing for HGTV to film. When they come in and they redo all the homes that the contractors have screwed up, you see all that on TV.
Of course,
Right.
of course. I mean,
know.
that happens all the time. You see it on HGTV, and then I also see articles every week about this homeowner scam, or these contractors scam this homeowner for $500,000, and this company's going under for taking homeowners' money and starting a podcast out of it. And at the end of the day, yeah, that's my vision. I would love to erase the landscape of all the bad, shady, unethical contractors, and we're doing it one at a time out here.
Go, Jon. Go, Jon.
For your service, then, do you get a monthly subscription fee to get access to all your ebooks or podcasts or videos, or is it a one-time fee? How does it work?
So most everything is complimentary. The only thing that you would pay for on the Maxable website is our e-course. We put a lot of time and energy into creating a really supportive, helpful program. Currently, that's on sale for $99, but all the YouTube videos, all the articles we've written, everything like that, and to utilize the rest of our service, totally free. The way that we make money is only by referring quality contractors and architects. And when it comes to contractors, we only make money when the contractor gets hired for a job. So there's a lot of other players in the space that may seem similar to us, but they're selling leads to contractors. They're charging contractors a monthly fee to be listed on their website. We're, again, fully invested in the quality of the team. And at the end of the day, we figure a model that works in this way where homeowners who trust a contractor and believe in their value and choose to hire them, we only want to succeed when homeowners succeed and when the contractor succeeds by winning the business.
And Jon, is Great Builds only working in California, or are you working throughout the U.S.?
Currently, Great Builds and Maxable only operate in California. All of the resources and articles that we've written on both websites are extremely helpful and can apply to any other area. But when we talk about the costs, when we talk about the procedures for the different types of these projects, that content is primarily focused on California. Currently, our contractor and architect network extends throughout most of California. But if we talk in 6 months, 12 months, hopefully we'll be continuing to spread the gospel of Maxable and Great Builds nationwide.
So when do you think you'll be in Florida? That's kind of halfway across the country.
It's a bit over there. We're working on it. That's all I can say.
Okay, great. Well, we really
get your insurance lined up before you go to Florida, Jon.
Yeah, that's true. Sure. California has problems with insurance too.
Yeah, sure.
Jon, we appreciate you being on our show. Our guest next week is going to be Kevin O'Neill, the CEO of UVAX Bio. So we're going to go from housing to biotech. That should be pretty exciting. And Robin, thank you so much for being on the show. I can't wait to read your book. And I'm going to hit you up for an introduction to Mark Cuban at some point when I decide to pen my own book. Thank you so much for joining Money Matters TV, where your money matters to us. Have a great day. And don't forget to write in your questions to money-matterstv.com. Thank you.